You're a farmer in Mesopotamia, 3,300 BC. You just brought in your harvest. Good year, grain silos full. You're feeling pretty good about yourself. And then a man you've never met walks up with a wet clay tablet and a reed stylus and tells you that some of this grain belongs to the temple now. Not because you owe anyone a favor, not because you lost a bet, because he wrote your name down, and once your name is written down, it's real. You didn't sign anything. You didn't agree to anything. Somebody just pressed a symbol into mud, and now a portion of your life's work belongs to someone else. Welcome to taxation. It's older than money, older than most gods, and it might be the actual reason humans learned to write in the first place. Here's the thing. Nobody tells you about the invention of writing. We like to imagine the first thing ever written down was something beautiful, a poem, a prayer, a love letter carved into stone by candlelight. It wasn't. The oldest surviving written records on Earth from the city of Uruk in southern Iraq are tax receipts. 1 mark for a bag of wheat, 1 mark for a cow, 1 mark for a day of unpaid labor. Humanity's greatest intellectual leap, the thing that eventually gave us literature and law and science, was invented so a guy with a clipboard could keep track of who owed grain, and it got sophisticated fast. By 2600 BC, in a city called Lagash, scribes weren't just tracking payments anymore. They were tracking who was trying to get out of paying. There is a 4,600-year-old clay tablet whose entire purpose is documenting a specific man's attempt to dodge his taxes and fail. We don't know his name. We don't know what he looked like. But somewhere in the historical record, permanently in clay, is proof that this guy tried it and got caught. Congratulations to that man. You are now more famous than 99% of the people who ever live, and it's because you got audited 4,600 years ago. Now, let's talk about how you actually paid these things, because coins didn't exist yet, which meant the ancient tax office would accept genuinely anything. There's a surviving record of a burial tax paid in 7 kegs of beer, 420 loaves of bread, 2 bushels of barley, a wool cloak, a goat, and a bed for the corpse. Someone decided the dead guy needed furniture in the afterlife, and the government agreed and taxed it accordingly. Then there's the guy from around 1800 BC who settled his entire tax bill using 18,880 brooms and 6 logs. Nobody knows why he had that many brooms. Historians don't know. Archaeologists don't know. I don't know. Somewhere in ancient Mesopotamia, there was a man standing in front of a government building with a truly deranged quantity of brooms, and the tax collector just had to accept it because technically, legally, it counted. And my personal favorite, a man who told the tax collector he owned nothing of value, no grain, no livestock, nothing taxable, except 1 set of extremely heavy millstones he definitely thought were worthless. The tax collector said, "Great, we'll take those instead," and made him watch as they were physically dragged away. That's the oldest recorded instance of someone trying to be clever with a tax man and immediately regretting it. So why does any of this matter? Because the entire tension you're picturing right now, the ordinary person trying to keep a little more of what they made and the state trying to make sure they don't, is not a modern invention. It is one of the oldest continuous relationships in human civilization, and it was already fully formed 5,000 years ago. Egypt runs the same experiment around 3000 BC with something called the Shemsu Hor, the following of Horus. Every year, the pharaoh personally travels the kingdom with his officials to assess your grain, your oil, your beer, your livestock in person and take a cut, not an anonymous letter in the mail. The actual ruler of the country standing in your field, counting your cows. This is the system that built the pyramid. Every massive stone block at Giza exists because farmers across the kingdom handed over grain to men with papyrus and authority. And centuries later, this exact tax system accidentally gave us one of the most important discoveries in human history. In 196 BC, Ptolemy V grants Egypt's temples an exemption from certain taxes to keep the priesthood loyal, and has the decree carved into stone in 3 different scripts, so nobody can claim they didn't understand it. That stone is the Rosetta Stone. The artifact that let modern scholars finally decode hieroglyphics is underneath everything a tax exemption memo. But here's the story that actually explains everything about human nature and government, all in one incident. Around 4,500 years ago, a Mesopotamian king builds a bridge so farmers can reach their fields on the other side of a river. Reasonable infrastructure project. Then he puts a toll on it. Also reasonable, arguably, except the locals immediately look at that toll, look at the river, and go, "We'll just swim." And they do. Dozens of people every single day swimming across a river specifically to avoid paying a bridge fee. This is the first documented tax loophole in recorded human history. 5,000 years of civilization taxation, and the very first thing we ever did with new law was find the gap in it. The king's response was not to lower the toll. His response was to make swimming across that river a capital offense, punishable by decapitation. Read that again. The earliest tax loophole in human history got closed by making the loophole illegal to survive. We complain about a letter from the tax office. Ancient Mesopotamians got their heads removed taking a shortcut, and that swimming law is genuinely the direct ancestor of every anti-tax avoidance rule that exists in every country today. Every time a modern government closes a loophole, the moment someone finds it, that instinct traces back to one very irritated king and a river full of people trying not to pay him. So here's what we've actually built up over 5,000 years. Writing, possibly invented to track debt. The pyramids, funded by grain nobody wanted to hand over. One of history's most important archaeological discoveries, secretly a tax exemption announcement. And the concept of the loophole, old enough that the original punishment for using one was death. Every April, when you're filling out a form and mildly annoyed that you have to prove you didn't underreport anything, just remember, you are participating in the oldest, most consistent tradition in human civilization. Someone asking for a cut and someone else looking for the river to swim across. Just maybe don't actually try swimming across anything to get out of it. That law's still technically on the books somewhere, probably.